What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Highbury Standard. Name is Javi, and today we're doing a little quick preview of our FA Cup quarterfinal draw. We are going away to St. Mary's and facing Southampton. Now, listen, on paper, this kind of seems like, lower opposition, easy game for us to win, throw in the youngsters and call it a day. But, it's a Saturday night game under the lights away at St. Mary's, a club that I think, belongs in the Premier League, has a tremendous amount of heritage, but also is a team that is, fighting for a playoff spot in the championship, is in a decent run of form, knocked out Fulham in the previous round. And when you're facing a team like Arsenal under the lights on a Saturday night, you're going to get up for that competition, especially when there's an opportunity for you to book yourself a ticket to Wembley. So I expect the fans to be up for it. I expect the players to be up for it. And therefore, we need to be up for it because we can easily find ourselves being knocked out if we don't take this competition seriously. Now, with that being said, it is lower opposition. So Mikel Arteta is going to have to approach this in the right way and make sure that he fields a strong enough team that can win this game comfortably, but also giving rest to key players. Because we've had international friendlies, we've been playing a lot of games this year. We have a lot of players that I think we've been demanding a lot more enough. I actually don't think Arteta has done a good enough job of squad rotation. So there are definitely a few players that I don't want to see, feature in this game at all. And if they do need to feature in it because we need to solidify the win, then 20 to 30 minutes max. So with that being said, I kind of just want to dive into kind of who I would want starting for this game, and then we can talk a little bit more about kind of like the context of the game, what it means, the FA Cup, etc. First and foremost, I don't really want to see Kepa play. I do think that we put the loss on City. We attributed the reasons for our loss more on him than it deserved. I think we would have lost that game even if we had three goalkeepers in goal. But he showed that he wasn't stable and reliable enough to feature for us, especially in this final run-in. And at this stage where we're at, when we want to win every single competition, I don't want to see him playing against Southampton. And if Mikel Arteta does play him, I'll be very disappointed in that. Seriously, I would be. So I think Ryan needs to play. Ben White has been playing more minutes as he's going back into full form, and Timber's still nursing an injury. So I think he's a natural, slot at right back. Mosquera should play, and Leo Saliba continue to give him some rest, and Mosquera has been proving himself to be reliable. Gabriel didn't feature for Brazil, so I think he should be able to play as well. Calafiore played over 200 minutes for Italy, and then Gabi is still nursing her injury, so I think those guys need to be rested. And Skelly at left back becomes sort of the default option, a player that I think should have been played a lot more this season and should be utilized a lot more. So I think it's a perfect opportunity for him to show Mikel that he should rely on him, especially in this run-in. Norgard is the obvious choice in the middle of the park. I don't want Rice to feature in this game at all. It's a player who has been carrying a bit of discomfort, who's been playing a lot of minutes. And also when you look at the amount of ground and the amount of runs and the amount of sort of effort that he puts in every single game, I think this is a guy who is cruising for an injury. And if we don't sort of take care of him and give him the proper rest that he needs, we can find ourselves in some serious trouble. I think a similar thing could be said about Zubimendi. But I think it's really going to come down to whether or not Odegaard will be fit to play tomorrow. Everyone's been sort of targeting this particular fixture as his potential return. So if he can play that, I think that'll be massive in being able to give rest to both Rice and Zubimendi. But if not, then I have to choose one over the other. I think I'd rather have Zubimendi play over Rice than the other way around. The other sort of midfield compatriot, I would like to see Max Dowman there, just to see how he would feature and how he would play. And then up top on either wing, I would like Madueke and Trossard. Saka needs some rest. Martinelli played a lot for Brazil. And then Gyökeres, who also played a lot for Brazil, I think needs to get some rest. So I think Havertz is the natural choice. So that's how I would sort of carry the team. I think that team is more than solid enough and more than good enough to get a professional job versus Southampton. And if we find ourselves in the 60th, 70th minute, the game is still tight, then you can chuck on the likes of a Saka or a Declan Rice or whatever you need. I mean, those aren't very inspiring names to turn a game around, but if you need to bring on some of the big guns to sort of solidify the win or change the tide, you can definitely go ahead and do that. But Mikel needs to definitely give rest to key players, but make sure that they have the right mentality and the right approach to walk away with a professional win here. Now, in previous episodes, I kind of talked about how I would feel if we only walked away with a Premier League title this year, and I said that I would be very underwhelmed and disappointed. And I very much would be. And to reiterate kind of what I said, we've been waiting for a Premier League title now for over 20 years. And specifically under this Mikel Arteta project, we've kind of seen the quality of our football go downwards. We've seen us be a very entertaining and scintillating side to kind of playing a bit more of a practical and kind of conservative approach. And when you look at Man City's dip in recent years and the fact that Liverpool kind of nicked the Premier League last season, you kind of felt like, well, we should have had one by now. We've been due for one for a long time. So I think it's going to be a little bit underwhelming with that factor alone. There's an additional factor, the fact that we are the absolute favorites in every single competition that we're in. And so to only walk away with one competition, considering the depth of the squad that we have, I think is also going to feel a little bit underwhelming. And also, there's a World Cup this year. So even if you were to win the Premier League title, you have the Champions League final a week from that. So very quickly, the footballing world will move on. And then just 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later, you have the World Cup. So we're going to have maybe about 3 to 5 days where the entire kind of, nation is on us and giving us our proper flowers. And then after that, boom, you're done. You're looking at Champions League, you're looking at the World Cup, you're traveling, and, the sentiment is going to change. And very quickly, that Arsenal title that I've been waiting over 20 years for is going to feel something like it was ages ago because of the fact that it's a World Cup year. So if you don't couple that with at least another trophy like an FA Cup, which would give us a double, I think it's going to feel like a very underwhelming season, especially with the quality of football that we've played and the fact that the Champions League, there's no given right to win it. But when you sit yourself at the top of the footballing, the English footballing pyramid, you have to look at the FA Cup as another must-win competition. And I do feel like this is a must-win game and a must-win piece of silverware for us in the context of everything, but also considering the fact that this is kind of Arsenal's competition. It's a trophy that we've won the most out of anything else. We have 14 FA Cups compared to 13 league titles. So, we've had some very, very, very poor run-ins in recent years, which I think has been sort of very, very disappointing, actually, and I think inexcusable. So we owe it to ourselves, and the players and the club owes it to us fans to deliver this trophy for us and give us a proper season to remember. So it's important that we win this. Also, I think when you look at the context of things, our the last game that we played, we got eliminated from a cup final. And if we were to find ourselves being eliminated once again from the FA Cup, that's 2 back-to-back defeats, 2 back-to-back cup eliminations, and now you're facing Sporting Lisbon away in the Premier League run-in with, I think, a lot of, scrutiny on you. I talked about how the narrative around Arsenal, whether or not they're that team that can change kind of things and can get over the line, and whether or not they've gotten over that psychological barrier, that narrative still surrounds us. So for us to put the EFL Cup final behind us and kind of mute that narrative as much as we can, I think is absolutely necessary if we want to have a successful kind of a run-in and a professional win tomorrow. I think is one of the easiest ways to do that, or at least taking a first step to do that. So we'll review the game afterwards and then do a little preview for Sporting as well, kind of within the same episode. Hopefully we get the job done. I want to see us be very professional. Hopefully our setup makes the right decisions with squad rotation, because the last thing that we need is a silly, unavoidable injury against a team that we should be beating regardless of whether or not they're up for it. So hopefully that's not the case, and hopefully we're all happy after the 90 minutes at St. Mary's. I'll catch you guys in the next one.